Well, I know there was you wanted to ask about, I think, a bit of kind of like a cult and belief system kind of things.
That's my specialty. But I totally. What was it? Well, one of the things that I came across, while I was always doing research during the graveyard hours, was that, it's kind of a funny thing that we're always told that magic is one of those things just for Disneyland. It's in a fairy tale, and yet over and over and over again, all of these people who are in positions of power also are participating in these bizarre rituals, and so I basically came to the conclusion that, well, they're obviously doing something. They're in power. Mm-hmm. So what are your feelings on that? I mean, is there any sort of validity in these more esoteric subjects that, I mean, obviously they're holding on to it, so there's something very valid there. Yeah. But what does that mean for the everyday person? I think there's absolute validity to it. I think it is, as I guess I've maybe said on the show, that there are those things that I may be interested in, but it's maybe not something I want to put on the site. Because, of course, I already, will catch grief from folks for having, Clyde Lewis has something about aliens, and people go, oh, why are you putting that crap on your site? Yeah.
But as far as, I think a lot of folks out there know that I had a, conservative Christian upbringing and went to the church Sunday morning, Sunday night, Wednesday night till I was 15. Mm-hmm. And the only way, and I don't know that I've ever told this on the radio before, that the only way I got out of going to church on Sunday was that one of my first jobs at the age of 15, I was a dishwasher at a restaurant. I had them put me on Sundays. Specifically, yeah. So that I could get out of going to church. So then go to my mom and say, oh, they put me on Sundays. What can I do? I'm just the peon. I don't have any pull with the schedule.
I must say I've probably done that myself.
But I guess, as far as the belief systems and things go, I don't know if I would at this point call myself, agnostic or, there's something going on in the world, and is there higher power? A lot of these things, I feel like I come down on the way that I come down on sometimes things like aliens or other. It's like I have never seen any evidence of it.
Yeah, you haven't seen it personally.
And I would basically say that there was probably a guy named Jesus Christ. And if we followed his teachings and ideas as much as we claim that we do, we'd probably be in better shape. Mm-hmm. But beyond that and all the other things that surround it and, end times and prophecy, and growing up in the church, it was a lot of Armageddon, Revelation, end times kind of stuff. And we see more and more of this coming with all the things in Israel and possible, prophecies, and these certain things have to happen. But whatever sect or religion or cult you're talking about, they all have their in-game, end-time scenario that's meant to be, and they're all going to actively work to make it happen. So in a way, it's like, well, if this wasn't really, God with a capital G's plan, it's like, well, they're certainly going to make something happen. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, the more you learn about, all the other technologies and things, that it's like, man, they could pretty much fake most of the things in Revelation to an extent. Mm-hmm. As far as, there'll be armies, that will converge, on the north to the south, and some kind of Earth event will wipe out both those armies, and then the West will be able to say, aha, see, I made that happen. There are these scenarios in end times. That's like, we have scalar weapons. We have weather weapons.
The technology exists.
The technology exists.
Fake anything.
And probably...
So how do you believe anything?
Like Project Bluebeam stuff was probably early things that you and I talked about. This either fake alien invasion or fake, rapture or weather or fake, kind of religious event. That does really fascinate me endlessly. I guess when it's esoteric and occult, it's probably just also my own just lack of, knowledge and awareness about a lot of those areas that keeps me from going, kind of fully into it. Mm-hmm. But if it's in the realm of talking about, staged media events or Orson Welles and War of the Worlds and these technologies that I can, wrap my head around, that's an angle I can approach, I guess, these kind of stories. But,
something more solid.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But I mean, as far as I don't know. I guess it feels strange to discuss. I don't know the belief systems of things because I don't know. I guess it depends on.
Well, I study religion, so it's totally a me question.
No, I know, and that's what's funny. I mean, coming from a churchy background, as much as I would like to say, I don't really believe any of it.
Well, belief implies a certain amount of faith, as
Exactly.
opposed to knowing.
Yeah, that's a good point. But it just drilled so much into my head at a young age that it's still hard to kind of escape. And having that background, at least on some level, can help me go, oh, there's that thing in Israel they were talking, or these, events that I know they're kind of pushing for.
I heard about that in Sunday school.
Exactly. Yeah.
And now
exactly.
it's happening.
Exactly.
Interesting.
And that's what's been great hooking up with somebody like Clyde Lewis too, because he does a lot of kind of religious history and gets into those areas more that again I've kind of learned a lot from. But yeah, as far as I was a born again Christian at a young age, and the belief is that that can never be undone.
Yeah.
So the part of me would go, well, I guess I'm good then. I can
seem fairly decent to me.
I can pursue. Well, no, I meant like I should be good to go. In that, well, if it's all a bunch of crap, it doesn't really matter. We're all worm food anyway.
Gotcha.
But if it is all true, I am technically a born again Christian. So,
But then you got to start going into, well, is this the right religion, or was it that one that was older?
Yeah.
Or is it the one that was before that? It's an ad infinitum kind of game.
So I guess to flip it around to ask you to ask me, I don't know what kind of things do you think folks wonder about the site and the show, or any other kind of behind the curtain kind of things? I guess I try not to keep things too kind of mystical in a way where it's like I tell everybody what music we use or where all of those kind of things.
Well, I think there's always been, like, just in general, since it was invented, there's always been the mystical relationship between the listener and the person on the other side of the radio.
Yeah.
So it's one of those things that's kind of impossible to avoid. But I don't know. You seem more open than most, so I guess it just makes somebody want to go, what else? I want to know more.
That may be
because you're so open with it.
And that can sometimes, and maybe that's the double-edged sword sometimes, that, being what I think, makes the show fun is being, kind of personable and more conversational and, was always told, even back on, the FM radio in Shepherdstown, West Virginia, that, don't imagine you're talking to thousands of people. Just imagine you're talking to, a handful of friends, and I've always tried to do that. And again, having a set place and a set time to do the show can kind of help that, and not so much make it feel like, oh my God, there's going to be people listening live, and it's got to be perfect. But yeah, so the more you give, the more people are going to kind of want out of it, I guess.
Yeah, I guess I could see that. You open up a can of worms and see, look at this. And then they want to see more.
So I guess what other notes were we going to discuss? Oh yeah, I don't know that we can really get into transhumanism and
oh gosh, no,
time wave zero and any of those kind of things. No, I would. One thing I wrote down, and to go back to again, that we kind of met at work, working the graveyard shift, stocking groceries, where you could have one earbud in, and you could be listening to podcasts, and you could be listening to audiobooks or lectures or Terrence McKenna or 9/11 Synchronicity or whatever shows of that day. And because it was an 8-hour shift,
that was one of the advantages of working graveyard.
I could keep up on so many podcasts, and it was kind of an accelerated kind of learning curve. But now there's no way, and I fortunately work in the daytime, and it was good too, because now I'm able to talk to people, talk to more people, and talk to coworkers, and to come back to that thing of like, that's where I think the information war is. It's kind of one-on-one in talking with folks. It's never for me been about bullhorning or yelling at people or getting in people's faces, or any of that kind of stuff. Yeah, it's always just been more of a kind of one-on-one thing that, most effectively for me does it. One thing I do, I told somebody this the other day, and I think they enjoyed it. And maybe actually it was you, but
Possibly.
at the job when on lunch break, there's our little break room upstairs where there's usually all the pieces of newspaper from the day, and it's basically the Oregonian and the New York Times. So flipping through the papers while I'm having my lunch, I usually have a pen or grab a pen, and so when there are articles that rub me the wrong way, I add little addendums and little notes on the articles about, that essentially say, but what about da-da-da, or, Google, such and such.
I noticed they didn't talk about this part.
Exactly. So for case in point, I think the last one I did was the story about Goldman Sachs, getting further into bed with Facebook, and they had this kind of chart that mentioned all of Facebook's, kind of wealthy donors and starters. And so below it, I just kind of wrote, with a little asterisk, it was like not listed in QTEL, the investment arm of the Central Intelligence Agency. And just adding little things like that in the newspaper. So then I don't know who's going to come up next and, flip through it and maybe see it. And maybe they're going to go, hey, what's the deal with that? And I think,
well, it's kind of funny. Like I've totally had the same thing